So I came across this photo of Leon on my For You page and I was like, I have to draw him because look at those arms. So we're gonna draw RE9 and then RE4 Leon, and I'll walk you through kind of what I'm thinking as I draw these portraits. Now I usually don't draw anything below the neck because I'm scared of body anatomy, but being able to study Leon's biceps is a good motivator. So right now I'm laying down the main facial features such as his nose and lips and eyes, and I do this by imagining in my head horizontal lines drawn across his face and seeing how the angle of his eyebrows and his lips, for example, doesn't exactly line up with these horizontal lines. But the bottom of his nose does, so I can kind of gauge the correct angles of which to draw his features from here. And then drawing in the shadow under his eyes also helps me to gauge whether it's an appropriate distance from the bottom of his nose. And I've drawn this angle several times. You can see it in my other Requiem Leon video, where I give a more in-depth breakdown of kind of how I'm visualizing his face, and I'll make another more in-depth just how in general I draw faces for my Back to Basics series. Right now I feel like I've gotten most of the features down in the correct places, so I'm gonna be adding some details like extra shading or wrinkles. One thing I like about the silhouette of his hair is that it's pretty simple in that it's kind of just a circle, not many extra flying strands everywhere. So to start adding more detail to the hair, I start by shading lightly overall, trying to follow the direction of hair flow, and then adding darker areas for where the strands kind of overlap and have shadow to kind of build more definition into the hair. And then to place the top of his shirt sleeve, I use the length of his face as a proportionate guideline, as well as envisioning horizontal lines drawn from the bottom of his chin and the top of his shirt sleeve, and gauging the distance relative to other areas that I've already drawn. I struggled a bit with this reference because, as you can see, his hands are kind of cut off, and I really didn't want that to be the case in my drawing. So I decided to try to draw him shooting, but I went in the game to take my own reference photo, and when he aims, his arms are much straighter than what they are right now, so later you'll see me trying out drawing a straight arm, and it just didn't work, so I was just like, I'll leave it as this, even though it's probably not 100% anatomically correct. And then the questions I ask myself when I'm drawing his arms is how big is his wrist compared to, say, the length of his forehead, and I'll adjust from there. And also noticing things like the top line in his forearm is maybe 3/4 or maybe 2/3 the length of his forearm. I feel like for skin and this reference in particular, it's important not to have hard lines as shadows, but instead have soft blended shadows. So here you can see me trying to draw the straight arm that he has when he's aiming, but I just didn't prefer the look because I kind of like how you can see the shape of his delts in this pose. And then we're on to the next one. I don't know if you can see, I tried to draw Virgil under there, but he did not look that great, so I erased him and we're starting from scratch. This one I wanted to just be a quick sketch because I didn't want to spend so much time detailing all the details, especially in full body. Some important reference points that I looked at when drawing the face are making sure that the bottom of his hair lines up with the bottom of his nose, and then his chin to nose distance is about the same as his nose to eyebrow distance. Lining up his shoulders with his mouth helped me find the correct height. So I really wanted to try to draw this one because it has foreshortening, perspective, hands, and anatomy, which are basically artists like me's nightmare, but I really want to challenge myself and I think it turned out pretty decent. I was starting to draw the details of his eyes and he looked a little bit creepy, so I was questioning my life, but we keep moving forward and pushing past the ugly phase. But yeah, he looks pretty frightening. And I'm not exaggerating when I say anatomy is my biggest weakness when it comes to art, because I messed up the hand placement and I'll fix it later, but yeah, don't follow what I'm doing here. I adjusted the length of his nose a little bit. I tried to find the correct length by drawing angled lines from the ends of his eyes to the bottom of his nose. And then I tried to get the angle of his jaw correct by just looking at the slopes of the lines, and you can see that the bottom of his chin is a straight line and then starts to become a sloped line as it connects with his ear. I did the same technique here to put his shirt sleeve in the correct location, and to draw his hands, first started out by mapping the general area that it would take up, and then adding more details like the fingers and the ridges. But I thought something looked off because his hand looks absolutely massive, even with the foreshortening. So here's where I realized that I messed up. I fixed the location of his hands by measuring the distance relative to parts that I already drew, like how I did before with Requiem Leon. Drawing the hand was a little bit difficult, especially because it's basically completely in shadow in this photo. And I heavily debated making this video into one longer draw with me session or splitting it up so that Requiem and RE4 Leon were 2 different videos. So let me know if you have a preference either way. My reference point for this drawing is that the bottom of his hand almost looks like a horizontal line that connects to his forearm and thumb. And then I attempted to draw his infected veins in his arm, but they did not look that great. I think it was because the lines I used were too sharp compared to the photo. Now that I finally got the position of his hand correct, I'm moving on to shading. I think one trick with his fingernails is to make sure to keep the outline faint. And then I tried out making his shirt dark, but in the end I did not like it, so you get to see me erase it very satisfyingly. His hand that's in the back is actually cut off like that in the reference, so I took my own reference photo because hands are another one of my weaknesses, and that's how I finished this drawing. Let me know if you guys have any requests, and I'll see you next time.